Hello to all the Atlanta United fans. My name is Jurgen Damm, and you are watching Scarves and Spike, an Atlanta United podcast.
I think we broke it. How's it going?
Hi there. We are tiny. Let's try this one.
Hey, we did it.
Hey, technical difficulties sorted before we even really got into the show. So,
And that's how we go, baby.
we'll just
Welcome.
pretend this is where it started. The credits just, like the intro just ended. Go.
No, it has to be a disaster when it's me and you. It's perfect. So welcome everyone to Scarves and Spikes on a Club World Cup, Gold Cup off week, whatever you want to call this weird schedule that we have in the month of June. You're off again, then you're on again, then you're off again. And next week we're back. But for right now, it's just us. It's just me and you, Henry, hanging out, getting you ready for Columbus, because that is going to be, I don't know what we're going to get. I was actually about to look up. My goal was to look up the last time that Atlanta won in Columbus, and I might be right. It might actually be this might be the anniversary of the last time they won there. It might be totally
Like
off
the
here, but I
exact
think
day?
the exact day, because I'm pretty sure when I pulled up my Facebook memories, it was winning the U.S. Open Cup game
No way.
in there. It might be the anniversary, so we will need to fact check that. Someone might be able to do that for us.
It's the 25th, right? The June 25th?
Is that what it was?
No. I'm asking like the date of this game. Because I'm
I
trying
don't
to look it
know.
up.
Um,
If you can filibuster for me, I'll find it.
yeah, but I mean, going to Columbus has never been an easy thing. June 18th, 2019 was the Open Cup win. So you looked that up. I'm pretty sure that was the last time that we've actually won in Columbus. But we were going to get you ready for Columbus. But we have a very special guest today, one of my favorites. Kevin Egan is joining us from Atlanta United fame, from Club World Cup fame, formerly of WWE fame. He does everything that I like. I don't know if I like Club World Cup, but and then also MLS Season Pass. He's doing a great job with that. So we're going to have him back here talking about it because he was on commentary yesterday, and I heard some fantastic things about that. And ask him what he thinks is going on with Atlanta United, because there's one team he still follows. It's definitely Atlanta United. So we're going to check in on him with that. And then we will give you our score predictions. And spoiler, I don't know how great they are. We're missing a couple of them, but so far from the ones I've seen, it has been pretty bad. So we will check in with that. But as always, join the Patreon. Come hang out with us. We are going to likely be doing a watch along. I mean, I guess it all really depends next week on how Miami goes. If they're going to be advancing to the next round, which then would delay the Atlanta-Miami game from my understanding. But if not, then come join us on the watch along. Come join us in the Discord. We've got a lot of fun things going on there. Scarvesandspikes.com. Check out great articles by this guy over here and the rest of the gang. And go to the store. For the low cost of $29.99, Henry will come clean your home. So we don't have a maid outfit for him, but we are working on it, or a butler one, whichever one you want. We'll get there.
Whoa. Okay. Let's calm down here before we start offering my services to folks.
Well, it's just cleaning services, so we don't have to really go farther than that.
All right.
All right. Anyways, so as we go, sad news that we did here, and in the last game with New York, Derek Williams went down very awkwardly, and it looked like it was a non-contact injury. And when you see non-contact, you usually think that is out for a very extended period of time, which could be anywhere from 6 months to a year. But we actually did get some good news with that, though, because he's only expected to miss 3 to 4 weeks, and he had a tear in his foot. Now, that's 3 to 4 weeks out to return. How he'll actually be after that 3 to 4 weeks, I'm curious, because you saw with Shandy Silva last season how long a foot injury could bring him down, I guess, like to the level that he needed to be, because he was playing, right? He was playing throughout most of the season, limited minutes, but he still did not seem like the Shandy Silva that we had the previous year, even though he never really came back this season either. But he still looked he didn't get back to normal, and he even said that he was continuing to have injuries or pain throughout that entire end of that season there. So we'll see how Derek Williams goes, but he will definitely be out for the next group of games, and maybe he'll be able to come back when Atlanta returns home. But until then, this road trip, there is no Derek Williams. So I ask you, with Derek Williams out and with Sion Gregerson also likely out for, I don't know when he's even going to be returning. How are you feeling about this back line going into these next 2 games? I mean, that face is saying a lot. It's scaring me, actually.
I mean, have you ever seen the meme that's like a door and like it has like the little like the thing for the deadbolt and it's like a Cheeto in there? That's how I feel about this defense at this point. You haven't
I
seen
don't
that
know what
meme?
this meme is, but it just sounds like something that I would see when I'm on gummies at 1 in
Okay.
the morning.
Well, the case is it's going to be a mostly, neither one of your starting center backs is going to be available for that game. And not only are your starters going to be out and the skill level, but also their leadership, because those are 2 of the leaders on this team, Gregerson and Williams. And so it's really going to be asking Noah Cobb, Efrain Morales, Matt Edwards, he's been starting for a little bit, but some of these guys to step up and really kind of show that they can fill in the gaps, not just, defensively, but, being a communicator, being an organizer of that back line. Whoever is on that back line, it's probably going to be a pretty young back line. I think that's safe to assume. And so I don't know how that's going to go. Ronald Hernandez started. It was the last game he started at like left center back, which was weird. I still don't like him. I think he's a liability on defense. I don't understand why Dyla didn't play Cobb. If it was because he really wanted Hernandez to kind of support Amador when he went forward on the attack or something. I don't know. It was weird. It just didn't really come together. And I think Noah Cobb gives you a little bit more on defense. And so hopefully he'll get his chance. Efrain Morales has been begging for his chance. He's gotten it with the Bolivian national team. Still hasn't really gotten a full chance with Atlanta United. So maybe, Derek Williams and Stian Gregerson both being out opens up some chances for him. He has to be doing something right. He was named to the SofaScore CONMEBOL Best 11 for the last international break because he helped Bolivia keep a clean sheet in, I think it was a 2-0 win over Chile or something like that. And so, this is a chance for the young guys to step up and show what they're made of and show that they can do something that this team has only done once this season, and that is keep a clean sheet.
I think this is what a lot of people wanted, though, that they've been calling for a while. At least on Spaces, people are saying, play the kids. Play the kids. And Atlanta United is never just going to go and play the kids until they're completely out of the playoffs. And maybe they would just want to see what they have going into next season. They're not just going to go young just for the sake of going young here, because you're not out of the playoffs. Like, I understand that things are not great right now. Could they go on a run? Absolutely, they could. Is it probable? Probably not. However, they look at this and say, we're going to play the most experienced lineup that we have. Maybe we can mix in some youth there. But now you absolutely don't have a choice. You have to play them. You're running out of choices at this point, unfortunately. The one nice thing is that we do have some depth at center back. Now it's young, But if this is what you wanted and you wanted to see the kids play, then this is the opportunity. Is it going to be worth the hour and a half drive for me to Columbus to watch this and say, yay, I got to see this live? I've been there before on Star Wars Day where we had to play a bunch of youth and it did not work out well. But it is exciting to be able to see them. And these kids here, and if Ronnie D's here next year, he's always said he doesn't have a problem playing them. This is an opportunity to really show your manager that you could be the future of this team here. Because you're paying a lot of money to Stian that has not been able to play much over the past 2 years or year and a half. I mean, just a lot of injuries there. Now, Derek's been reliable, but now you've got to go Ronald Hernandez, Cobb. Yeah, I mean, let's see how it works. On the road, what could go wrong?
By the way,
oh, go ahead.
Sorry, I just wanted to also say, if Trinidad and Tobago make it out of the group stage of the Gold Cup, Jay Fortune will most likely miss that Columbus game too. So I'm sorry, Jay, but I think us Atlanta United fans are on a little bit of Trinidad hate watch right now because we need you, bro. Oh man, we need you. I mean, honestly, this midfield just it doesn't look the same without Jay Fortune, does it?
No, it looks like again, I want to see Jay play and them build around Jay. And I think that a lot of people have said the same thing here because it feels like for a while it was just throw Jay in around those players. I think you should be building around him to what works because you've heard people last season. You heard Dax say that Jay was the best player to end last year. You've heard Parkhurst say about how great Jay is. Look, you have to start the good teams in MLS. A lot of the good ones build around their youth, and you're able to throw some money. You don't have to throw as much money on other players because you have a little bit cheaper because you're building within, not paying crazy transfer fees. I would love to see him be the anchor of this team for the next 5 years. Now, does that happen? I don't know. I don't really know how Garth Lagerwey wants to run this team into the future here. Because I think previous teams, it was like, okay, we'll throw them in there for a little bit. If it works, great. But like for your midfield and your forwards, we're going to spend some money on it. Can we get the youth in there? And can we get Jay the long-term run here and build around him and maybe save a little bit of money on it too? With that said, though, I don't think Garth and the gang want to stay inexperienced on that back line because there was a transfer rumor that came up by Tom the other day. Want to get into that?
Sure. So, according to per Tom Bogert, I believe it came out yesterday. Atlanta United is closing in on a deal to sign Albanian international center back Enea Mihaj on a free transfer. 26-year-old primarily plays as a right center back, is what I'm seeing now. Previous club was Famalicão in the Portuguese First Division. Now he's coming out on a free because his contract with them expires this summer. However, he cannot play for Atlanta until the secondary transfer window opens on July 24th. So we're going to have to wait at least a little over a month for him to actually hit the field. And some stuff about him. He is kind of a regular with the Albanian national team, which at this point, I think a lot of people kind of roll their eyes at because it's like, oh gosh, another guy that's going to be away on international duty. This team needs guys that are going to play. He missed the last call up, but his last call up was in March of this year. Another thing that I kind of found interesting is that he is the captain, he was the captain of Famalicão for the past year, and he was at that club for 3 years. So in theory, he brings some leadership, right? And people,
We got to
I've
go
seen,
back to this comment then. Sorry to interrupt you
yeah,
there.
I know. I'm gonna hit on him like, oh yeah, leadership and culture, dumb stuff. Actually, I don't think so. I think, you know, with a guy there that kind of, I mean, Dylas talked about it, that they need leaders and they need communicators and they need people that are going to organize, the players around them. And yeah, I think who better than a guy who was a captain in the top 6, 7 league in the world, right? One of the top European leagues. Um, from what I saw of his kind of highlights, um, as I said, he plays more of on the right side, but he isn't like any of the center backs that we've had recently. He is more of a ball playing center back. He's a guy that can really distribute the play, that it has plays accurate long balls and can switch the play very easily. A guy who can play penetrating passes from the back line. And that's something that this team doesn't really have. And so I think it's interesting that we're signing this type of player. It kind of speaks to the team's intention, or Ronnie Dyla's intention at least, to kind of play out from the back and not be afraid to play into pressure a little bit and break those lines of pressure to find space behind and really hit on the counter is what I'm seeing, or just create fast paced attacks. And so I'm excited for that aspect of his game. I hope that, that really translates here. But other than that, I mean, yes, a defender has to defend, and he looks solid there. He tracks runners. He looks very highly aware. And I mean, he isn't the tallest center back. He is kind of 6 foot, 6'1". He isn't the tallest guy. He's not like Gregerson tall. Gregerson's like 6'5", but he can still win aerial duels, and he's pretty fast. And so my first instinct was, this is a guy who long term is probably replacing Derek Williams. Derek Williams or Luis Abram, because both of those guys, their contracts expire at the end of the year, and I really don't expect either of them to be picked up, especially not Luis Abram. So at the very minimum, he is going to be the replacement for one of those guys. However, both of those that I've just mentioned are left center backs. And so the question is, if he is a right center back, or primarily right center back, because he also plays left center back, are you moving him over to the left? Because the truth is, left center back and right center back, those are two very different roles. So are you making him adjust to that new role, or are you starting him on the right and benching Gregerson is my question. I'm curious. I'm just curious where this guy fits. He's definitely going to be a starter, though, from what I've heard.
I mean, you can't really rely on Gregerson being healthy. And unfortunately, that's just the way it is with him right now. Now, what do they do with Stian Gregerson? Because I think someone actually tweeted Doug a while ago saying, oh, he's going to be the buyout. Now, I don't think that you're going to buy him out unless they're really worried about long-term injuries with him. But Ronnie has said before to the media that part of being this team is obviously being healthy and being able to stay on the field. And that is something that Stian has not had. Now, some of them have been some real random injuries. But if you want to compete, you got to stay healthy. I mean, in this league, you don't have the power to have unlimited depth. You have to be able to have some, obviously, but then, and like the kids, like right now, I mean, you've got Cobb and Morales that want to have an opportunity here. But still, if you're paying Stian Gregerson that much to be your starter, he has to be a starter. That's really the way it goes. If not, then you need to work on transferring him out. And I don't think that that's the way that they're going to go. But I mean, it seems that anyone's basically on the table to be moved besides Miguel Almiron, Latte Loth, Fortune. I mean, everyone else. I don't think Amador is going to be a concern of moving there. But I think everyone else, you have to leave on the table here, because the rumors are going to start flying here in the next month, and it's already started. And that's fantastic because we look at this transfer window coming up, and it does scare me a little bit because I don't really know how Garth works in this situation. Because last season, I don't want to call it a tank, but you moved on from 2 of your DP players. You still brought in another one, but they didn't do a lot else with that. And it was like, okay, and you fired your coach, you fired your technical director. You fired everyone, and you basically was like, if we make it cool, if we don't, we're saving the money for the following season. By the time we get to the end of this window, I'm very curious to see where we are because you're not firing your coach this time around. You're not firing your technical director. You're not getting rid of your 2 DP players. I think 3 DP players. I don't think. I mean, if it feels like Alexi's starting to pick things up with this team over the past 4 weeks, 3-4 weeks, he seems to be understanding the assignment. So I think he's safe. I mean, but go a month and a half ago, I don't know if we were saying the same thing. Everyone was coming on here saying, "What does this guy do?" Now he's doing things, and I thought the New York game, as bad as that was one of his better games that he had. Opportunity, score a goal, creating chances. Just it didn't, and I mean, he created that chance that almost created a penalty that should have been a penalty that didn't happen. But he keeps creating chances. I mean, that would have been, you wouldn't call that an assist, but I would call it an unofficial assist if that penalty would have been called there. So you're not moving on from your 3 DPs. But what I don't want here is to get into possible bad contracts just to save this season. Like if the rest of the season is crap, you don't make the playoffs. Look, it sucks. Okay, it sucks that we keep getting in the situation because we had this conversation at this point in 2024. And now it's 2025, and we're having the same conversation, but there's a lot less that you can change. Now, next offseason is going to be crazy. But right now, I don't want to save this year. I want to look, everything that you do needs to be for, if it helps this season, fantastic. But this next season is where you have a lot of player turnover. I don't remember how many players are you could potentially get rid of here.
12 contracts are expiring.
And that's why you're here, to help me out with that stuff. So 12 contracts. You are not going to be able to replace 12 players in one window. That is going to be very difficult, even if you have Chef Henderson and then also Garth working with him on the side, which I don't know if a lot of people want Garth working with him on the side at the moment. It's just how people feel about him. So how do you do this? Well, you start building in the summer for next year. That makes it a little bit more difficult because you've got to move potentially some players out to open things up. But that's really what you need to do is to start looking at next year and getting ready for that. And again, nobody wants to hear that stuff, especially the people. Look, I think it's easy for me to say this because I'm at home watching it on Apple TV, but there are people that are paying their hard-earned money every week to go to the games, pay for parking, pay for tickets, pay for alcohol. Granted, it's cheap alcohol and cheap food, but still, that's a lot of money, time that you are dedicating to this team here. So it's again, I want to say it's easy for me to say that because I'm not invested as much as money wise as a lot of people are. But really, that is what next season is that you've got a lot of players. So the turnover here, and I feel like we said this last year because you moved 2 DP players. So obviously you're bringing big ones in, but you are now, this next off season is going to be about the rest of the team, the core of the team. It's not the DPs. It's just what you're building around those DPs. Do you feel the same way?
Yeah. I think with the designated players that you have, right, you have the foundation for at least the next 2 or 3 seasons. At least, some of them are going to last a little bit longer. Some of them are going to last, not as much. But I would say about the next 2 to 3 seasons, you're stuck with this group of DPs, of 3 DPs that you have. Unless for some reason, like something happens and, one of them just needs to go. But
Saudi Arabia calls and says we want one of them.
Hey, if they're going to put up the big bucks, I would not be opposed. But you have that foundation. Now it is time to build around the rest. And, when my observation about this window right? Atlanta has 3 open senior roster slots after trading Shande Silva, right? If you're signing the center back and Naomi Haj, that's one of those slots gone, right? Because you need one for him. The international slot, you use Shande Silva's and you're good to go. So now you have 2 senior roster slots open that you can use this summer without having to move anyone else out. Although if you do move someone else out and you start doing other stuff, sure, have at it. You have 2 U22 slots open, so potentially you can make those 2 slots U22 signings if you wanted to. You have potentially enough money to pay a TAM level salary because that's what Shande Silva was occupying. So you have some flexibility there. There is some stuff that this team could do in this window. I'm not going to say it's enough to save the season. At this point, I think, season's freaking done.
Well, and I'm going to stop you right there because Colonel put in the chat, what's the effing rush, guys? When Ronnie won MLS Cup, the Pigeons were below the playoff line in October.
All right. I get it, Colonel, because you've been saying it a long time. I do not agree that Atlanta's a cup contender. I appreciate your optimism, but it just feels like things are falling way back here. And if things don't actually turn around soon, I just don't see how they can make up this deficit. I mean, they're several points out from the play-in spot even. And so we're going to see. We're going to see what happens. I would be pleasantly surprised if Atlanta makes the playoffs. But just one more thing I'm going to say is, haven't you noticed that we're hearing some transfer business being done a little earlier in this window than we have before? The last couple of summers, right? I feel like all the business came towards the tail end of the windows. And the window hasn't even opened. We're more than a month away from the window opening, and we're already hearing about one signing, a signing that is going to reinforce the spine of the team, that kind of narrative that we've heard about, and ideally be a starter for this team on the back line. Back line, by the way, that is one of the worst in MLS. It has conceded 34 goals, second only to some other team that I can't think of right now, but second to a team. DC, not surprised when you have
38.
2. Oh yeah, well, when you lose 6-1 and then 7-1, I guess that's to be expected. But the case in point, the fact that we're hearing about the activity starting now, it gives me a little bit of hope that they are at least feeling better. I don't want to say better. At least that they're feeling that these signings can make the sort of impact the rest of this season, the rest of the way this season, to potentially have this team do a repeat of 2024 where, we're down here. It doesn't look like we're making the playoffs. There's a 5% chance of making the playoffs on decision day, but oh my gosh, they shock the world and they make it, right? Potentially building it so that there's a chance for the rest of the season. And obviously, as we just talked about, a foundation for next season, which I think is even more important because at that point you have a clean slate. And ideally, with all of the roster turnover that we are kind of projecting for this window, or not this window, but the winter window, that's going to be massive. And if you're setting the scene now, I think that is better long-term for this team.
Yeah, and your 8 points, like Colonel, I know you put in the playoffs are a lock, and I don't agree with that at this point. When you're 8 points out, it's very difficult. And when you've got your next 4 games on the road against 2 of those teams that are MLS contenders with Columbus and Miami, it's very scary to see where they could be after that. And then after that, I mean, you have DC, I think, and Toronto. Those are your next 2 games on the road, and then you come home for an extended period of time. Could they get it together? Absolutely. Are they going to have a lot of home games to end the season? Absolutely. It's not impossible for them to do this. And like you said, it is good that the transfers are potentially could be ready for when that day that window opens. They're there and they're ready to play, and that would be great. But they've got a lot of holes here, especially, and someone put on there, I forget who it was, about that we need a left wing. Absolutely. We've been missing a legit left wing since Sean De Silva at the end of that year. I mean, he was fantastic in that third of the season when he came in. I mean, he was on for most of those games, a couple bad games that he had there. And even in the playoffs, scored against the Crew. Then he didn't score against the Crew on the one shot, but still, I mean, he was looking like he could be the future. Got the fans. He was a fan favorite. Spider-Man mask. It was like this is amazing. And then he died out there. You absolutely need that if you want to make this offense, because right now everything's on the right. Miguel Almiron's on the right. Brooks Lennon's on the right. But on the left, it's just who's there.
Let's not mention Brooks Lennon, please.
I know, and I don't. We didn't really get too much time to talk about the New York game.
You mean the assist he had?
The reverse assist? Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
But that's why this window, I am just interested to see the rumors coming out. And we talk about MLS transfers and what you could do now inside the league. I'm just wondering if Brooks Lennon is a casualty of this and they move on from him there. I don't know what the office thinks about him, but he needs a raise here soon. And that's a big part of it is, do they want to pay him more? Give him another contract. But we have been talking about the sadness of Atlanta United. We need to spice it up. And if there's a guy that just his smile can uplift us all, it's this man right here.
Try not to smile.
Don't hide it.
Hey, fellas.
Hey, Kevin. What's going on, man?
I'm great, thanks. How are you, Tommy and Henry? All good?
Yeah. Well, having fun and more fun watching the Club World Cup than we have had watching Atlanta United this season, unfortunately.
Yeah, it's been rough, to say the least. Yeah, so it's tough to find the positives after the last result. It really is. And I don't know. We said it at the time when Ronnie Deila came out and called them soft. We said, right, this is a brave move, but it's got to pay off, And if it doesn't pay off, if it doesn't work, where do you go from there? And that's the tricky part now with life is terrible, Kevin, says Connor. Connor, give me a shout afterwards. We'll have a little pep talk about life, because life can't be that bad. Let's not get too consumed by it all. But it's tough right now. Yeah.
Well, and there were a couple of good games too there. I mean, the Orlando and Cincinnati games at home, I mean, it was like people were like going, are we back? Are we back? Now, there were some crazy games, some crazy situations in both those games. But then it got back to normal.
For me, was always the 6 road games on the bounce. Like that was looming at all times. The Cincinnati win was great. You follow it up, or I'm trying to remember which one came first. I think it was Cincinnati came first. Yeah, then Orlando, and then 6 road games. Always going to be tough. Atlanta United do not have a good record in New York, whether it's against NYCFC or against New York Red Bulls. And again, it's proved costly. This is so cool, by the way. Watching all the live comments coming in as we chat here. You guys are killing it with this show. Absolutely brilliant.
Thanks, Kevin. Now, we have the Club World Cup going on, and you are back on the mic, man. How does it feel to be back on the call for, some really cool games, honestly?
Yeah, I've missed it. I've missed doing play-by-play. And they gave me a really cool opportunity. It's a half an hour into town to head to the TNT studios, which is also nice. I'm able to come home in the evenings. I've got a great game coming up on Friday, Chelsea Flamengo, and then back to Inter on Saturday again. Urawa Red Diamonds, they're playing aside from Japan. So it's a fun time. It really is. And the games tomorrow, the whole slate tomorrow is actually phenomenal.
Got a game here tomorrow, actually.
Yeah.
Miami Porto. So that's going to be fun.
Not easy. Not easy for Miami. They've got to show a little bit better. But I don't know if any of us are overly surprised by what we're seeing from Inter Miami in the Club World Cup.
Well, yesterday, Sergio Ramos scoring, 39 years old. I did not know his age. I had to look it up to see what it is. Amazing that he's still doing it. I can't sometimes, I wake up in the morning. I'm 42. Sometimes I wake up, I can't even bend down to tie my shoes. And this guy's scoring goals.
I know he's crazy when it comes to his body though and his physical health. He's one of those players that's absolutely obsessed by it. You see certain guys when they retire and their fitness goes out the window. I think Sergio Ramos will be 90 something years of age and still running hills. He's that sort of guy. Luis Enrique, similar way, manager of Paris Saint-Germain. Cristiano Ronaldo obviously is the best known example of it. And Sergio Ramos was always going to be that guy. And the way he climbed, though, I mean, Acerbi is marking him. He's tight with him. Ramos gets free. And the way he jumps over the defenders to power that header past Jan Sommer was so impressive, but we can't be surprised by it. I believe it's 147 goals now, all competitions in his career for Sergio Ramos.
That's crazy. I mean, I was just watching the Stanley Cup Finals that ended yesterday, and two of the leading scorers in that series were the age of 40 and 36, two oldest guys in that series scoring goals. And it's just, I think people look at the age sometimes and just say these guys are done. But I mean, really, you could just look at the opposite way. They've got experience and they know how to get it done.
I'm looking at the comment here from Bruno. What about a team with Sergio Ramos and Pepe in defense and Brad Guzan in goal? Yeah, that'd add up quickly, Bruno. That'd add up quickly. Although, to be fair, Sergio Ramos would slot right in. There's no question about it with Atlanta United right now. That's an obvious one. Dominic Torrent was speaking about Sergio Ramos, the type of person that he is, and just what an absolute leader he is. And that's what Atlanta United need right now is absolute leadership. We know that. We can see that. We can all feel that when you watch the games. That leadership is one of those things that's sorely lacking, especially in the back line. You know, it's the team is craving that right now.
Well, let me ask you this, because I wasn't planning on asking this, but we've talked about leadership a lot, especially the last 3-4 years. When you were with the team, working with the team, who were the leaders that you could see just from being around the team? Like, who were the big leaders?
So I think two of the greatest leaders that Atlanta United have ever had, both didn't speak very often. And it just goes to show you don't need to be a screamer and a shouter, and you don't need to be seen on camera to be saying we got to do this. And we don't have to go to the media and talk about what we need to do and start giving it the whole rah-rah. It was Michael Parkhurst and Darlington Nagbe leading by example in games, doing the right things, showing their teammates how it's done. Parky was the ultimate captain. There was one time I remember in 2019 when it looked like Joseph was just ready to have it out with everybody. I'm watching training. I'm out at the training ground. And Frank de Boer was the coach then. And it got heated with Joseph in training. And everybody was leaving. And Michael Parkhurst took Joseph and said, sit down. And they sat down for about 40 minutes until both of them were laughing their heads off. And Parky has his arm around them. And they're leaving the training pitch together like best friends. And they had a heated conversation. Then they had it out and had a laugh. And that's real leadership. The real leaders don't need to be seen as leaders from afar. Darlington Nagbe is a classic leader from within, simply showing by example the way he interacts with his teammates, the way he is off the field, the way he is publicly. He's a leader. Sometimes the leaders speak in different ways, like your classic Roy Keane examples, or maybe a Declan Rice, or go through MLS. You'll find guys like Bedoya at Philadelphia, for example. That's a good talker. But I think that the leaders that Atlanta United have had the most, Brad is certainly a leader, but I think you need leaders out the field. You do. I think the ones we've had at Atlanta, Parkhurst and Nagbe, are the ones that stand out the most.
Yeah, I mean, and Brad, who knows if he's going to be back next season? I mean, we've been saying for the past couple of seasons, Brad's probably not going to be back, but he just still ends up keep going and going here. And obviously he's, like you said, he's the loud leader there.
Yeah.
But going into next season, the question is who is that leader on this team? And that's what everyone wants to know. And we've heard good things about Ronald Hernandez. He's gotten the band quite a few times when Brad doesn't play. But
is he a starter? Is Ronald a starter?
No.
And is Ronald a starter in an MLS Cup contending team?
I'm
not sure many, and he's a good player. Don't get me wrong, but you need your leaders to also be examples on the field, like standout examples. It helps. You can have great locker room guys. I think there's a big difference between being a great locker room guy and good for the culture of the group and being a real team leader. And Atlanta United are just sorely lacking right now, because a lot of the guys that I've seen labeled as leaders, you're just not seeing that example on the field, you know, in the way they play. And there's something really soft about the team right now. And Ronnie Doyle has said it, and it's clearly frustrating for him. But it goes back to what you recruit, how you recruit them. I don't know exactly how Atlanta United go about that, but for me, I can imagine if I was thrown in that role, I'm recruiting, number one, I'm recruiting the person behind the player, you know, and figuring out who is your biggest allies in life, who are your biggest enemies in life, who are the ones that absolutely can't stand you, who are the ones that love you. Talk to all of them, figure out the ins and outs of that person, you know, before you go and spend any money on them. I just think that we talk about it all the time in MLS 360 with Dax, Sasha, Kalen, and Brad. And we all agree, and they've all played the game. Some of those excellent MLS players over the years, they all totally agree. You know, Dax has talked openly about this, about how they didn't even go out as a team when he was with Atlanta United. And he was only there for 1 year. But you go back to the team in 17 and 18, there were great dinners organized. There were photographs of the team out together as a group. That's what builds culture and camaraderie, you know, and that's not something that Ronnie Doyle can force, or Garth Lagerwey or Chris Henderson can force. That's on the players to step up and say, look, I'm going to organize maybe a team dinner at my house. I'm going to organize it can't be forced and for the sake of it. There's just so much more that goes into this than the play on the field and what creates leadership and genuine culture within a group. And they've got to want to do it for each other.
And so I guess we're kind of leading into that a little bit more, the leadership, the culture. Those are all things that have been talked about, and you just mentioned them right now. But I mean, let's talk about the rest of what's behind this team right now. I mean, going into this season, right, in preseason, I think a lot of people were predicting that Atlanta would be much better than it is right now. I mean, when you have $50 million of investment in your attack, right, you break the MLS transfer record once again. Everyone was expecting a little bit more. And right now they're in 13th in the East, I believe. What kind of, we talked to you more or less at the beginning of the season before it started, Kevin. How has your perception of the team changed? What are your thoughts on kind of how you were thinking of things going into the season and now where we are with Atlanta United?
You know, I think looking at the standings here, less than a point a game for the group. The chances of Atlanta United making the playoffs, I think, are extremely slim of creeping into 9th place right now. And it's more so, it's not due to the talent. The talent is there. The quality of player is there. I just don't see it with the group, you know. And when Ronnie Doyle is asked about his players giving up, and he admits that, where do you go from here? So unless there's drastic changes within the locker room, you know, and I don't know, I think Ronnie Doyle has been, you know, he's been backed by Garth Lagerwey. Unless they can really make changes come the summer transfer window, which is not for several weeks now, mid to late July, it's going to be really, really tough. And even at that, I don't see enough evidence from this group to suggest that they can go and make a run. They can make something happen. Last year, Rob Valentino's special. There's no question in my mind about it. Rob, his staff, I'll tell you this. Rob Valentino and his staff were up. They were in there in the facility at around 6 a.m. every day. They worked out together as a training staff every single morning and had everything prepared, ready to go. And there was a buy-in from the players and the coaching staff. And something changed. Obviously, you need to get a little bit of luck along the way. But something changed with this group, and there was great camaraderie, and they found a way to win games late on. And something magical has to happen with this team. And I thought that was happening. With the Cincinnati and Orlando win, I really did think that this team had turned a corner. But the New York City loss, forget about the New York Red Bulls. The New York City loss is just tough to take, and it's tough to swallow for Atlanta United fans, and really tough to analyze, because you do fall back on individual errors. You do fall back on culture and camaraderie within a group. It's the first thing I always look at in every job I've ever gone into is, who are the culture setters in this group? Who are the ones that when somebody's speaking, you know what I mean? One person takes out their phone and does this. And if they have any influence at all of a sudden you'll notice other people start to take out their phone. That's a silly, small example. But there are certain cues that are set from certain people within any organization. And we all work in different places. We all see it and we all understand it. I feel on MLS 360, I'm stupidly lucky with the group that I'm with. I feel like we're all swimming in the same direction. The meetings are really productive. And it's just one of those teams that I'm part of now that I feel so grateful that I'm with this certain group of people. And you see it in Philadelphia. The culture is set. The culture is a positive one. The right people are having the influence on the group. And Ronnie Doyle has admitted it. You know, they've all said it in there that it's just not right. There's not enough winners within that locker room. Winners on the field, off the field, if you like, whatever you want. It's just not there. And they need to make some moves. And the player they're linked with, I see on Twitter today, Tom Bogert, talking about an Albanian centre back, right? At least he's captain of his team playing in the top division in Portugal. That would seem on paper, like I said, I've never met the guy, and I don't know all his favorite people and his enemies in the world, but he seems like a positive step here because they need that.
For sure. And really, you know, doing our little over the top kind of research on him, really quick research. He was on Instagram, I believe, the other day. He posted like a goodbye message to Famalicão, which is his former club that his contract is expiring with them, and that's why he, is linked with this free agency move. And in that message, he was kind of thanking everyone at the club. He's like, thank you to the physios for all the care that you had for me. Thank you to all the trainers, all my coaches, all my, the kitchen staff. Even I think he thanked, all my teammates, everyone. And I think, I posted that in our little Discord, and Tyler said something that kind of struck a chord with me. I was like, that kind of shows you the type of person that he is, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so I think that's part of what you were talking about, right? Looking at the person behind the player, and if that reflects part of his personality and potentially the type of person that we could get with him, right? Mm-hmm. Maybe that helps shift the culture of this team, especially if he's a leader, shift the culture of this team in a more positive direction.
I hope so. I hope you're right. The one thing about Major League Soccer is, especially as we move into a new era where the ambitious clubs like Atlanta United will go after the top players, the American player has always been grossly undervalued. The top American player, I think, in Major League Soccer. Michael Parkhurst is the classic example of how you can find a gem who has that right mentality, who understands the league, and bring him in and to do wonders. I mean, Walker Zimmerman's a Georgia boy, he's from Lawrenceville. Wouldn't we love to have a guy like Walker Zimmerman here in Atlanta representing Atlanta United? There's a lot of gems out there within the league that are just great locker room people and leaders, quote unquote leaders, again, if you want to go there, that this team needs an injection of that, of personalities. You don't want teachers' pets. You just do not want teachers' pets. People going in, yes, sir, no, sir, yes, ma'am, no, ma'am, going about their business. You need someone who's gonna twist the knife a little bit every now and then. Joseph Martinez was that guy. Was Joseph probably a pain sometimes to a lot of people at the club? Yeah, I'm sure he was. But he's a winner and he's a killer, and that's the difference. You need people like that within a group. And Bruce Arena, I tell you, I have a lot of time for what Bruce Arena has done with San Jose. He's gone about bringing in personalities and guys that will step up against each other if need be in the dressing room and let everyone know how they feel. Chicho Arango's that guy. Joseph Martinez is that guy. Dave Romney's that experienced veteran at the back. He's recruited really, really well, and I think that they're starting to improve San Jose, and I think they'll make the playoffs. And I just, that sort of personality is really needed within this group to fire things up.
One of the things, I mean, we've seen some coaches get fired already here, but I guess one of the questions that because I don't think it's fair just to blame one person here. Like sometimes people are just blaming the players or they're blaming the coach. I mean, it's everything: the front office, it's the players, it's the coach. If this goes as bad as potentially we see it happening here, do you think that Ronnie gets another year with this team?
Who knows? I don't know. I mean, at a lot of other clubs, probably not. But I think, I don't know if it's the kiss of death when Garth Lagerwey comes out and publicly supports him, like he did speaking with Doug Robertson, or maybe that is absolutely genuine, where he says, no, this is on me. Like Garth, in fairness to Garth Lagerwey, put it on himself. He constructed the roster. This is pretty much Garth's team now. Chris Henderson is still new at the club, and it's falling woefully short. And if you're Arthur Blank right now, you've got to be looking saying, how's my investment doing? In the team, where are we at? And wondering what's going on with this group. So the talent is there. I don't think there's any question about that. Certainly further forward, their goals need to be scored. How many goals here this season? 21 goals in 18 games. So far short of expectations. I thought there'd be at least double that right now. I said to you guys pre-season, this is the best Atlanta United team on paper we've ever seen. On paper. How bad was that statement? How bad does that look right now? To think about this roster, though, I'm thinking Miranchuk pulling the strings, Almiron further forward, closer to Latte Lat. Obviously Saba Lobjanidze was exceptional last season. I really thought Slish was going to step up this year and be more of a leader, be more of a solid figure in midfield. And at the back, that was where I had the question marks, was just around who's going to start for this group at the back. And I see one or two comments there. There was a comment saying, Kev, like basically, I hope I'm not sounding too negative. I'm just going by what we're seeing lately and how this team is just so far short of where we all expected them to be. Atlanta United, I don't think there was anyone that had Atlanta United outside the top 5 or 6 in the East heading into this year. And now a top 10 finish is massively in doubt.
Well, and let's say a positive thing, because early on in the season, we had a lot of people on from MLS, and everyone came on and just said, what does Alexei Miranchuk do? Well, he doesn't have a role on this team. He's not creating. He has been creating over the past, since the Orlando and Cincinnati games. I mean, he had some of his best games there, and even against in a bad New York City game that they had there, he created that opportunity that probably should have been a penalty, but it wasn't called there. I mean, he seems to be starting to do what he is supposed to be doing and creating the chances. Now, can people finish it? We're not sure here, but at least we're seeing life from him, because at one point early on in the season, it was like, we don't know what position he is. Should he be benched?
Yeah. Just on that, by the way, quick note for Daniel Graham says the investment is fine. Talking about the overall investment, I'm just talking about the 50 million spent up front. When I talk about Arthur's investment in the attack, how's it doing? It's underachieving. For Miranchuk, I still think he's a brilliant ball player. I think he's a really classy ball player. That is the whole proverbial square peg, round hole right now in this group. Bradley Roy Phillips talks about it all the time on 360. He's looking at Atlanta United thinking, this is a great team to play in transition. If you gave Tata Martino, you've got Almiron, who's worked with Tata before. If you gave him Latte Lat, you gave him Saba Lobjanidze would have been perfect in that Atlanta United team in 18, where Tito Villalba plays. He would have thrived in that position right now. Latte Lat in the role of Joseph. Obviously, we haven't seen anything close to what Joseph did from Latte Lat yet. And Miranchuk has to be that connector, I think, further back. In that team, you had Eric Remedi at MLS Cup in 18. Then you had Darlington Nagbe being that connector. And I'm not saying you have to play exactly the same, because Dial is different to Tata. But if you're gonna be more of an effective transition team, that's where Miranchuk needs to shine, in my opinion, and be that connector, receiving the ball from a Slish or from a centre back, and making sure that you're hitting Saba or Miguel Almiron on the run.
Well, let's get away from Atlanta United. Let's get away from some sadness here. Well, we got a few minutes left with you. I know you got to watch Atlanta United up front, the good teams, but now you get to watch all the teams. When you go into work every Saturday, what team are you looking most forward to seeing what they're going to do?
Oh, that's a great question. So I would instantly think Eastern Conference first, because the East is superior to the West this year. I don't think there's many people arguing that. I think, 40 points got Atlanta United to 9th place last year. I think it was 40, was it? And 40 points, I think, will probably get someone into 9th place in the West this year. It's lower than usual. For the East, I really like watching Philadelphia. It's not maybe the most attractive style of ball, but they're all bought in. The energy they bring, I know as 360 host that if I go to a Philadelphia game late, let's say it's stoppage time, like the last day, Charlotte, I believe, at Philadelphia, it's the 93rd minute. You're like, I'm saying to my producer, let's get to Philadelphia. And like, bring us to Philadelphia, because I know that, like Manchester United in the 90s, or like other teams, that they just will not settle for the score that's there. Philadelphia will just keep pushing. And that team is so emblematic of the city of Philadelphia. It's tough, it's hard-nosed, it's in your face. Jim Curtin always says that. He loved the way the Union reminded him of the city, and it represented the city well. And I can see that, and I can feel it when I watch Philly games. It doesn't matter who's away on international duty or who's injured. The youth academy is training in the exact same way. So those younger players are brought in. And even Kevin Sullivan at 15 had an impact in the winning goal the last day, which was a special moment for the Union. So the Union are one. Cincinnati, I still think, are figuring out their style of play, but they're a lot of fun to watch. I always want to watch Wilfred Nancy-led teams. And of course, Miami is just interesting. Everything about it. It feels like, it feels like entertaining in the same way a monster truck derby is entertaining. Like, you're just looking at it going, oh my goodness, this is just chaotic. The way Miami play, chaotic, but it's fun.
Now, Kevin,
anyone in the West?
Out in the Western Conference, I think the way Seattle are coming together, really impressive. Seattle are set to make a run, in my mind. I just wish they'd keep the grass. I'm watching Lumen Field the other night against Botafogo, and the way Christian Roldan played was maybe the best individual performance of a player I've seen this season. And there's been many brilliant performances, and people want to jump straight to the goal scorers. But Roldan was pure passion, pure class on the ball. He was tying it all together. Everybody was talking about Obed Vargas before this game, and deservedly so. He's a class young player. But Christian Roldan was next level for that team, and they put in a great performance against Botafogo, which wasn't enough. But I thought Roldan and Seattle were impressive, and they're a team to watch this season. LAFC are still figuring it out. I think there's probably going to be some big moves made there. The Galaxy are probably done at this point. I'm still hanging on to the slightest bit of hope, because Dax McCarty and Sasha Kleshin said they'd both bleach blonde their hair on the show live if the Galaxy make the playoffs at this point. So probably those teams. And special bit of love, obviously. I can't believe I haven't mentioned Vancouver yet. Vancouver for sure, and San Diego, those two.
Now, Kevin, kind of jumping back to the Club World Cup, we've already seen all the MLS teams play their first game in this Club World Cup. And honestly, personally, I was surprised that a lot of these teams were able to really match up to some of these other teams. And we're talking about, Seattle, I thought, playing better for the most part than Botafogo, putting loads more shots compared to Botafogo. And we're talking about a team that literally last season won the Copa Libertadores.
Botafogo were hanging on against Seattle. Copa Libertadores champions were begging for the final whistle. Did you see the celebrations at the final whistle? They were kissing the turf.
It's like they'd won the whole thing.
I'm with you, Henry. I'm watching that and I'm sitting back on, this is crazy. Like, they're going to be killed in the Brazilian press for the way they played, but massive credit has to go to Seattle for their application and the way they were completely bought in as a group. I'm sorry to cut you off there, but I totally agree.
Yeah, no, and I was just going to mention, even LAFC going up against Chelsea. I mean, we're talking about Chelsea, and not really a really rotated Chelsea side. There was a lot of guys that would normally start. Cole Palmer, Enzo Fernandez, a lot of these guys that are normal starters for Chelsea going up against LAFC. And I thought LAFC, it was still a 2-0 loss, but I thought they had their chances. They put Chelsea up against the ropes a little bit. I mean, it wasn't a blowout. What do you think about kind of how we perceive these gaps in quality between MLS teams and now these global teams that they're facing in this tournament?
MLS is on the rise, and you can deny it all you want. There's naysayers out there, and there's just people that are just being flat out negative about this tournament and about Major League Soccer, and that want the clickbait on social media. There's no denying it. I put this on my Insta story earlier on today. David Beckham's in the middle of a construction site, right, celebrating what looks like it's going to be a phenomenal stadium in Miami. Inter Miami Stadium's going to be ready to go next year. New York City's the following year in New York City. And then Chicago Fire's new stadium on the Chicago River in downtown Chicago, Illinois, is ready to go in 2028. All while the World Cup is here in this country, the Club World Cup this year. It's just such a huge time, and for MLS to go and thrive now. And I hope this tournament really pushes a lot of the owners to say, what if my team was in this right now? How would we fare? Because if the answer is not great, you got to try and push the envelope a little bit. You got to invest in your group and make sure that you can compete. because LAFC competing and they're ambitious, they're spending money. I thought they did really, really well, like you say, Henry. But it's the difference in class is Denny Bouanga's got to take a couple of those chances. There's big moments in that game, and that's usually the difference between the Chelseas maybe or LAFCs. You've got to take those opportunities to be with the big boys and grind out a big result.
Now, who do you think wins the Club World Cup?
It's hard to look past PSG. Honestly, I don't know if there's anyone else. I think Flamengo will really make a run. I think Flamengo are just a really good side, and that may come at the expense of let's see, Flamengo. They play in their next game. They play against Inter, so I could see them potentially causing an upset in that game, which would mean that. Excuse me, Flamengo Chelsea. What am I talking about? I'm getting all my games mixed up now at this point. So Flamengo Chelsea, which means that Flamengo could come at a cost to LAFC. If Flamengo get through, Chelsea get through, that's going to cost LAFC. And I'd love to see LAFC get through, but I just think Flamengo are a different class right now. Elsewhere, Palmeiras could make a run. No South American team has lost yet. Think about that. It's pretty cool to see. And I think after this Club World Cup is all said and done, the difference is going to be for many players, they're going to look at the global stage and say, I want to go play in Brazil. I actually want to go play in Argentina now. I don't need to stay in Europe. Maybe I'll go play Major League Soccer, because it's always been Europe, Europe, Europe. But why not go play in Sao Paulo, or Rio, or go experience Buenos Aires? I just think there's massive opportunities here for the world's game to be opened up to the eyes of many.
Awesome. Well, Kevin, we want to respect your time. Thank you for hanging out with us. We appreciate it.
Love that last comment, guys. Luis Araújo will score the winner in the Club World Cup final. I've got his game against Chelsea. I know I'm gonna call an Araújo banger.
That'd be a full circle moment.
I know.
But yeah, Kevin, it's always a joy talking to you, man. Thank you so much for coming on. This is awesome.
Anytime, please, anytime. Give Tyler my best.
Of course, and good luck on that call and the rest of the tournament.
Yeah, tune in on TNT on Friday at 3:00. All right, take care, guys.
I can stop working a little bit early.
Yeah, do. Well, cheers, fellas. Gonna go put the kids to bed. Big love to everybody tuning in. Honestly, sorry we didn't get to all of them here, but hi to everybody watching.
See you, sir.
All right.
Take care, guys. All the best.
I am not going blonde, Bruno. Absolutely. I've already shaved my beard on here. I can't go blonde. Now, I will say, I did have frosted tips when I was a youngin' there. When Tina met me, let's see, I met her in 2003. So I did have, yeah, I'm old, man. I did have the frosted tips there. That was the style back then.
2003 might have been my birth year.
That's fine.
Okay. But anyway, if y'all want to see blonde Tommy,
me and Tina's mistake, our first date mistake.
If you want to see blonde Tommy, that's a $50 Patreon tier. No, look, before we kind of get into the predictions, because I know we are kind of getting towards the end here, I wanted to give my quick takeaway, because we don't really have time to talk about this NYCFC game a whole lot. And I know we don't want to talk about what was a blowout loss and just terrible for all sorts of reasons. But for me, there were two main things that stood out. And one of them, it's a thing that we've talked about a lot, is this team just gifts goals like crazy. They gift goals and just hand them. And look, Atlanta looked very solid in the first half, up until like the 40-whateverth minute that they gave the goal to NYCFC. They look better.
2-0.
They look better than NYCFC. They could have been up 1-0, maybe even 2-0. If the penalty gets given, if Jamal Tiare doesn't touch that ball and it goes in anyways off the corner, it could have been an entirely different game. But the heads kind of just go when we get closer to halftime, or even in the second half, because within 4 minutes, they conceded 3 goals in the second half. And that's just something so weird to me. And going back to what Kevin was saying, I think that does have to do with, culture, with the leadership, with the guys on the field that are able to be an example and kind of tell their team, like, screw it, we are not losing this game. We are not going to concede. We are going to keep it going, right? And I don't think this team has had a player like that since Joseph left, for sure. But I think he has a point, and Kevin has a point in saying,
What do you think about Giakoumakis?
Parkhurst is. I think he's just a drama queen, a diva. I don't think he was that kind of leader.
Yeah. So sometimes you just need to lead by example too. And like you were saying, and like what Kevin was saying, like I think this team is just mentally weak here. But we've been saying that the same things that have been happening in 2022 and 2023, where the teams were allowing goals early on in the game. They would allow one, or right at half they would allow a goal, or they would score a goal, and what would happen right after there? They would allow a goal. I was hoping you'd finish it, but this is we got to just be together more. But like that would happen consistently. Oh, you're up 1-0. Now it's 1-1. Now you're losing 2-1. Like these are things that just consistently happened with this team, and now it just keeps happening. Different coaches, different players,
same issue.
Something has to change here. And you were hoping that Garth Lagerwey coming in was going to help change some of that. And I know that he's not the coach there, but bringing in these type of players. And look, I'm all for analytics. And you look at these teams out there that I'm going to give an example. And if anyone cares about hockey, if not, but like the general manager was talking about, the Florida Panthers, who won back-to-back Stanley Cups. And he goes, no matter what I do, he goes, analytics is extremely important, but I go to the coaching staff and I talk to them about the player and what they know and what some of the other players know about these guys, because we want to make sure that it fits our culture here. And that's what's most important when they brought in. And they brought in a piece right at the end of the season, who the guy is the biggest asshole in the NHL. And he fit in with this team immediately, who I'm sure had a lot of enemies on this team, because that's the kind of guy he is. And he came in and he was basically one of their best players throughout the playoffs, and the reason why they won the Stanley Cup here. So I understand analytics are there, great, but just like Kevin said, like you need to find the right people here to be able to come in and create that culture. And like he talked about the dinners there. Like I instantly went back and I can like see those pictures in my head. And it was a different combination of players. It wasn't just the South American players either. It wasn't just them that were out. It was the entire group that went out. Parkhurst and his wife were out with them. Lorenowitz, Garza, they were all out there with those guys at those dinners there. And and it wasn't just a monthly thing. It was like a weekly thing there. They were always out together. They were a close-knit team.
You don't see that anymore.
No, absolutely not. And you still had some of that. And I think maybe some of that worked in the 2019 team with Frank DeBoer, because I think they might have all used him as the enemy, and they all kind of binded together. And we're like, we are going to win despite what he is doing to this team here. He's killing the culture, because that's what they were saying, is this culture of this team is gone. They weren't shy about saying that about Frank DeBoer here. But they still had the cookouts. They still hung out together. And even though a couple of them got traded, probably because they were talking too much shit about Frank, they still kept it together, and they almost won MLS Cup. They almost got back there. And they still won some trophies. They still won the US Open Cup. They still won the Campeones Cup. Like, they were still able to do that. But man, like, I just want to go into next season and not be saying the same damn things every single year. And that's what, like, you look in the chat, and we've got people that have been hanging out with us for this is our fourth season doing this together. And whether you joined us in Spaces, or you joined us in the chat here, or in the Discord, or whatever, you all know, like, it's tiring to see the same things happen here, especially when you've seen such a huge turnover of everybody. the coach, the general manager, the president, all of this, and you still somehow have not been able to change that. So when I look, going back to what we talked about before Kevin came on, that you have to change such a core part of this team because of expiring contracts, you gotta hope that all of this ends up coming in together, that you can create a brand new culture going into next year. It's just what you have to hope for.
Yep. And just my second takeaway real quick before we do hop into our predictions. Moranchuk, you mentioned him, and you said this was probably his best game of the season or one of his best performances. And I agree with you. I think Moranchuk is finding his stride. And Kevin agreed with you. He said, he believes that he is a baller, that he is class. And we haven't seen, I guess we haven't seen Moranchuk unleashed really the way that we were kind of sold on him being the guy. But he's starting to do the things that make me think, okay, this guy potentially could prove us all wrong and make us look silly at some point very soon. And here's the thing. I was going back. I did a rewatch of this painful game, but I rewatched it. And he has some very interesting passes. The one you mentioned for the penalty, that should have been a penalty. That was a really, really good pass. But also, his ability to identify space has improved. He's playing more of his teammates into space, and his awareness of those areas where they can create high impact chances. It's better now than it was at the beginning of the season. And most importantly to me, he is playing more through balls. He had 2 through balls in the last game. And again, this is according to FBref, and they only consider them through balls. They only count them if they're completed, right? Yeah, I know. I'm a masochist. But anyways, so in theory, there were several attempted through balls where he attempted to play people into space. It just wasn't received. And sometimes, sometimes the pass is bad. Sometimes it's because the receiver just doesn't receive it right, isn't expecting it, isn't fast enough to get onto it, gives up on the ball or something. There are a variety of reasons why the through ball doesn't count on FBref, even though they are trying to make these impactful passes. And so my big takeaway here is, of the DPs right now, Moranchuk kind of looks like the best one right now. And I know it sounds blasphemous because, there's the guy in the chat that, always reminds me of the time I criticized Miguel Almiron, which I don't regret, by the way, because he still hasn't really been great. And Latte Lot isn't really in form. I think it's good for this team that Moranchuk is getting up to his level and is kind of being the quote unquote dog that Garth Lagerwey sold us on when he was signed, because he spoke very highly of him. I mean, he said, "We're back, baby." He added a baby for emphasis, right? It was like
chat is filled with it nonstop.
He really believed in this guy, and we've all been like, what were you on, dude? And even like MLS pundits are like, this guy is not, is not a DP level guy. So much so that we were trying to move around his position on the field. Some idiot on this site was trying to make him an 8. Me. But he's starting to show the qualities that are needed in that position, and he's starting to show what we were sold on. He's starting to play the through balls. He's accurate with his long balls still. He is playing very good balls over the top. So I'm interested to see how he develops, the rest of the season, and how, his progression goes from here, because he could become a guy that's just very, very crucial to this team and could be the difference potentially between this team making the playoffs, sneaking into the playoffs somehow, or not being in the playoffs for their first time since 2022.
And Garth Lagerwey's, has he missed the playoffs yet? Would this be his first miss?
I think it would be. I don't know if I don't think he missed them at RSL or Seattle because he pretty much won there like the first year he got there in either place.
I'm pretty sure when he came in, the stat was that he never missed the playoffs, and we
He
thought that
never
was
missed the
going to happen
playoffs.
last year.
Yeah.
And then they sneak in. So his record's there. But again, I going into this transfer window and hearing everything, it's no short term. This is a long term thing that he needs to prove that he can get this team good for an extended period of time. And look, we know it can happen. Now, are there going to be cap casualties to teams as they start, getting to the top? Absolutely. But you can't tell me that with the resources that this team has, that they can't stay at the top of the standings with alongside the crew. I mean, Cincinnati has been towards the top for a very extended period of time. Philadelphia had a down year last year. They brought in a new manager, and shockingly, they are back at the top. But they've been pretty consistent through that time. Miami, obviously, there, and then everyone else has kind of just been up and down throughout the period of time. If I'm missing a team, I know Nashville's had some downtime, but they're getting back there. But Atlanta has been consistently mediocre since Joseph Martinez got hurt. It really has. Now, the 1 year, you ended up making what I think the 6th seed. It was either the 5th or the 6th seed when you went against Columbus, and that was a fun season for
2023.
sure.
Yep.
But that still wasn't what this team should be consistently here. They should be at the top, and he's got a long way to prove. And again, I say this all the time in spaces. I don't know if Ronnie Dial is the answer for this team. And we talk a lot about the players, and we talk a lot about Garth Lagerwey, mostly because of the "we're back, baby" thing. But when you look at Ronnie Dyla at the end of this year, because I don't think he ends up getting fired here, unless it's like they lose these 4 road games and they come back home and they lose like the next 3. Unless it gets like seriously bad that now, I mean, I don't think anyone's Montreal's catching up to anybody, but like it gets that bad because Toronto, you do have Toronto here, and Toronto is 3-10-4. Like if you lose to Toronto into Toronto, like that's bad. That's real bad.
I think if you lose to DC, it's really, really bad because I mean DC's gotten their butts just absolutely demolished in 2 games. I mean, 6-1 loss to San Jose, and then a 7-1 loss to Chicago.
And they're a point ahead of us, man.
If you can't walk out of Audi Field with 3 points, I mean, there's nothing. This team's never going to win on the road.
But the legacy, and this is me being dramatic here because it's only 1 year, but if you decide to bring him back next season and it just is as bad as this season started, like that's when you have to start questioning whether Garth is the man for this position. Because look, I know I'm just repeating myself at this point, but like you have had such a long Garth Lagerwey has been doing a role for a while that I don't know if the word shouldn't be using, but it wasn't his role that he was brought in here for. Now, it was the role that he was really good at, though. He was really good at helping make teams and getting them into the playoffs. It hasn't worked, though. But now he's out of that role. And obviously he's always going to have the general manager in him, and he's close with Henderson. So they're going to work together on building this team. But the one thing he never did was hire a manager. And at the end of this season, if it's bad as everybody seems to think it's going to be, and they don't turn this around like last season, that decision that he makes, whether he stays or goes, is just crucial for his legacy in MLS. Because I understand you don't want to be the team that keeps moving on from managers, but some teams have done it. And we talked about on MLS Monday about how it took Cincinnati some very bold moves to move on from some managers real quick to find the right guy. But they found that right guy, and it's been rocket to the moon since. Maybe they haven't won MLS Cup, but they're consistently in trophy conversations. They won the Supporter Shield, and every player that seemed to come in is pretty damn good. So we'll see. But let's get to the Columbus predictions here. We don't have all the predictions here. Well, we will start with the guy that is not here, and that is Gray. And Gray says 2-0 Columbus.
And that is the most optimistic one so far.
Hey, mine's more optimistic. I feel mine's more optimistic.
Barely.
I've got them scoring a goal. But I see them losing 3-1 here.
All right. Well, I have them losing 3-0 because I don't. This team has not won. By the way, throwback to the start of the show where the question was, when was the last time Atlanta United won at Columbus? The answer is, drumroll please.
Was I wrong?
You were wrong. It was August 7th of 2021, a 3-2 win at lower.com field.
3-2. Yeah, Barco scored that. I remember.
It's
Barco
coming
scored
back
in that
now,
game.
isn't it?
Yeah, I remember Barco scoring.
Yeah, it was, if this page will load, Barco scored a pen and then scored another goal, and then Moreno scored a pen. There were 3 penalties in that game because Columbus scored off a pen too. Yeah. We have some very optimistic people in the chat, as you can see.
Hey, they're better. Hey, they're worse than ours. Some of these.
AX10, who calls me out for Miggy stuff. 3-0 to Columbus. Clearly, you believe in your Lord and Savior Miggy very much. 6-0 Columbus. Omar says. Jason says 4-1 Columbus. Tequila Volare 3-0 Columbus. Yeah, look. Columbus is a good team, a very solid team, coached by one of the best coaches in the league right now, if not just the best one. And you say Moreno 3 times and Tyler will show up. Even though they are kind of in a low point where they are not in a great run of form right now, I still think they
did win last game.
They did win last game, but they had like a 5-game winless streak. It seems like Atlanta's that get-right team for everyone this season, and I don't think that changes. Atlanta doesn't do well on the road, doesn't do well at lower.com field, and doesn't do well against teams who know how to manage possession and completely destroy their press and attack with pace, which Columbus does very, very well. So I don't expect this to be pretty. I don't expect Atlanta to even score. But if they do, sure, go ahead, ruin another one of my predictions and prove me wrong. Why not? Bruno says a 2-2 draw, or 2-2 Atlanta somehow. Does Atlanta score like a golden goal, or?
Oh no! Amar Sadich is going to score a brace. Oh no!
Us? Did he even score a goal? Like, did he score a goal here with Atlanta?
I think he scored one. I think it was a banger too. I'm pretty sure the goal that ended up happening there.
It's like all the random players in our history have, like, they've scored one goal and it's been just bangers. I mean, let's talk about Miguel Berry, right?
Very true. Well, and one of the things I'm interested to see with your conversation with our friend Ben, talking about Columbus in the next couple days, is who's going to be missing from Columbus. Because I think they have, I know they at least have a keeper out.
Did Schulte get called up?
No, it wasn't Schulte.
Hagen?
Hagen? Yeah,
I
Hagen.
think so. He got called up for some, like, it was just like a Central American team or something like that.
Guatemala. Yeah, I don't know who else is missing from their team.
Yeah, we'll have to see from him what's up with that.
Oh, Arston?
Yeah. Arston, he is with the national team for Gold Cup, so he will be absent. Actually, no. Well, actually, yes. Because the U.S. is probably making it past the group stage. So he'll still be away with them. So yeah, Arston will be missing. And I'll talk with, like you said, Ben, we'll figure out. We will be doing that recording Sunday. That should be out by Monday or Tuesday of next week across the pitch. They are missing Cucho. They've been missing him since February. But I think they are very, very much missing Cucho.
Do you buy Cucho? Do you go out and try to do shenanigans and just try to bring Cucho into Atlanta?
I would take him in a heartbeat. I think he's happy at Betis, though. He's doing pretty well over there. But I would take him in a
He loves
heartbeat here.
MLS.
Like I would trade whatever to have him here, especially because he is Colombian and this club hasn't really had a good Colombian player ever. So they've had one Colombian player and he's not great.
I feel that. I mean, there's rumors of Giakoumakis coming back to MLS, even though after he shit talked the league there on his way out
to Charlotte, by the way, because they have his discovery rights.
I don't even know how that all works, but if there was an opportunity, I would move any of these guys to bring Cucho Hernandez to this team here. As someone here in Ohio that just watches about, yes, I
You would trade Miggy?
Don't. You know who might be in the chat. We don't know if he's. I do. It's 8:25 on June 18th, and yes, I would trade Miguel Almiron for Cucho Hernandez in a second. I wouldn't even think about it.
Tyler listening to this and like rushing to hop on and shut down the stream.
I trade all three DPs for Cucho.
I mean, of the three DPs, would he be the one that you trade? Would Miggy be the one that you trade? Because you need to liberate one DP slot. Which one do you liberate?
Look, it would have to be him. I don't like it because, look, and the last thing we'll talk about here is the kit sales.
He just took like a note of the date and the time that you said that.
Oh, that's why I said it out loud, so you didn't have to look at the time there. But I look at this team, and you need to get a chance creator. And you look at Cucho and just what he was able to do with that crew team. Anytime that team just looked like crap, Cucho would just turn the game around and just score a goal. And I think MLS is worse without Cucho Hernandez. I said this when he left, that when Messi eventually leaves or retires or whatever, you still need a face of this league. And if there was a guy that was going to be a face of this league, it was Cucho Hernandez. And like I remember him like getting the trophies all at the end of the year. It reminded me just of Joseph Martinez. Getting there with all the trophies spread out there. Like that guy is just something special, a fan favorite, loves the fans, loves the league. He enjoyed the league. I know that part of the reason why he left is because he wanted to get more call-ups and he thought that him leaving MLS was going to help that. But man, if you could somehow be able to figure that out at a fourth DP spot, then I mean, Miguel Almiron, Latilath, Cucho, ooh baby. Yeah, I think about that sometimes late at night at 2 a.m.
About bringing Cucho Hernandez back.
It's just when you go into like I've been to lure.com field a lot, and when I go in there, I mean every time that I've been there, pretty much it's been a Cucho Hernandez memory of something that he has done in that stadium while I was there. I mean, I was there when they won it was Leagues Cup. Was it Leagues? I think it was Leagues Cup when they won against LAFC. I mean, that guy, I mean, he scored the game winner in there. And it just, the electricity that he brings to the game is just something special. And if there's a chance, man, I would do that in a heartbeat. But that's just me playing. It's 8:30 on a Wednesday and me just playing fantasy sports here. But yeah, it's going to be an interesting game to see what happens with Atlanta and the crew. They've had some time off. Maybe they figure some things out here. But obviously, we are going to see a different back line. I mean, I know we kept talking about Ronald Hernandez, and then we really were bringing up Abram there. But, I mean, Abram, Hernandez, Cobb, I assume, is there back there. We'll see how they can do against a Columbus team that is missing people, but Rossi is there. Potential Atlanta United player there for about a good 6 weeks. Rossi, we'll see if he can make Atlanta pay there, but we will see. And then hopefully the Miami game has just been rescheduled and that you don't have to deal with that game a couple days later. That would be nice to not have to go through that. That I don't even know what you call that. Those 2 games back to back for any team in MLS there. But hopefully they figure things out, and then we'll see. But Wednesday, join us. I think Henry and Jackson will be doing lineups. I will probably already be a few beers in, so I will join you guys from the stadium. We'll talk about that. Join us after on Spaces. I'll be driving back on 71 North to come home after that game, so talk a little bit about the game. And then, we'll be back the following Sunday to talk about the game and hopefully be back on schedule. Tyler's going out of town. Sydney's getting, I don't even know what day Sydney's actually getting married. He might be married right now. He might be on a honeymoon. So we'll find out and hear about those adventures. And join this guy over here and Tyler at the Signia tomorrow at 12:45.
Yes.
12:45 there. There's a Miami guy that we know that might be hanging out with these guys. You could boo him if you'd like. But yeah, go hang out with those guys if you're going to the game. If you took the day off, or you have the day off. I know a lot of people are off for the holiday. But yeah, go hang out with these guys, get a burger. The burger's amazing. And we will talk to you on Wednesday. Yeah, got a full week. Anything else you'd like to say? You have to do the peace sign. You always do the peace sign. That's your thing.
I do the peace sign.
You
I'll
gotta
do
do
it.
it.
I'll do it when we play the music, but yeah.
But they won't see it because the video comes up. So you got to do it. When you do it, the music actually plays. It's an automatic thing. It's an
Fine.
automatic thing that you do.
All right, I'll do it. But
I can't hit the video. I'm singing the song and you're not doing it. So
all right. Well,
I wish you all
thanks,
a good day.
guys, for watching. I will see y'all, hopefully several of y'all tomorrow. And if I don't, I'll see you when I see you. And also, watch out for Across the Pitch, which will be coming out Monday or Tuesday of next week with Ben, talking about Columbus. It's going to be awesome. Be there, be square.
Yes.
See, now the music isn't there, so we kind of have to...
I don't understand how this music thing works because I think these guys can hear the music, but we can't. And now we're small again.
No, because we've always been able to hear the music.
I
Maybe
wasn't
we
able
are
to
the
hear
music on this occasion.
Well, I mean, I don't know how we became small. We're Smurfs on the screen.
See, it happened on the intro too. Things just go awry when we're running the show, but you know what? It's fine.
Well, now this gives you an opportunity to do the peace sign multiple times, double peace, and the way this world is going, the world needs all the peace it can get. So I think that's okay. That was a little bit too much.
Too much peace. All right, sorry.
We know Bruno. I wonder if the comments still come up here.
Yeah,
see,
they do.
I can still see you guys. Yeah, there we go. This is something. See, this is what happens when we don't have Sydney.
1, goodbye.
What? Did you do that? It's only one.
I had to add a little bit of chaos to the show, like a Marvel end credits scene.
Well, there's going to be the Miguel Almiron just popping up here, or Jurgen Damm.